Chapter 12. Master Carlotta Stritt blew on her hands to warm them, rubbed them together, then put her right hand back into the cold water. She turned it a few more times, then pulled out the clean, wet, cold Jedi robe and dumped it into the bin for clean clothes. She took a moment to breathe and center herself further. The cold morning air hung rock still around her, and her knees crunched in the grass where dew had hardened into frost and painted the landscape a glittering white. Nothing broke the silence except the running of the river from which she had taken her water. She returned to her work. 5 of the outfits were finished and ready to dry. Now it was time for the 6th. She stuck the heater into the tub of soapy water and ran it for a minute to keep the water warm, then took the last dirty robe and plunged it in. The plain, durable cloth surrendered the sweat and dust it had gathered as she rubbed it across the washboard. Then she submerged it, and the warm water massaged her skin. She indulged herself by lingering, then lifted the robe free and plunged it into the cold rinsing water. The cold braced her, renewed her awareness of her own body. Someone approached behind her. Carlotta let them. "You know we have a laundromat in this town, right?" It was Hank's. Carlotta turned around. "Of course," she said sweetly. "Menial tasks help us to center ourselves. To do routine things gives us continuity and sameness in our lives, and without continuity we feel lost. Keither and I exchange this duty, not because it is undesirable, but because we both need this opportunity to rest our minds and remember who we are." Well, last night I found something important. Can I show it to you?" "The correct word is may, and yes, you may." "All right." He knelt down next to her and pulled out a holoprojector. An image leaped into the air, showing a twisted corpse of a young man with a hole burned into the middle of his chest. Mentally, Carlotta braced herself. "Remember when I said that the Sith wouldn't be dumb enough to use lightsabers? I was wrong. This is the earliest example of a lightsaber cut I could find. We have the data tapes because it happened right here in Flatbird County." He snorted. "There was a Sith in Flatbird County. Glad I'm not a betting man, or I'd owe you some credits. Anyway, we fished him out of the river about 5 years ago. He was identified as Lowdown Leesvag, a low-life kid nobody would admit to knowing. We assumed somebody had killed him with a modified welder and then dumped his body in the river. Not a very reliable way to get rid of a body. The murder was never solved. We assumed it was a drug deal gone bad, but it's the only clue we have to point to the Sith." With the push of a button, the image shrank into nothing, and another one popped into the air where it had been. This image showed the top half of a droid lying on the ground next to a pair of legs. This was a groundskeeper droid belonging to Mr. Zelton, a rancher in the north-central part of the county. I stopped by his ranch a few weeks ago and learned that the droid had been destroyed and Mr. Zelton hadn't bothered to tell me. Doesn't necessarily mean he had anything to hide. Like I said before, folks on Yostin like to solve things themselves. He'd figured it was some local hoodlums, so he just bought himself a new droid and gave it a gun. Luckily, he still had the remains of the old one lying around. The cuts were melted and laser scored. Sound familiar? And when I looked at its memory banks, I got this. A flat image bloomed above the projector, showing a short, black-cloaked figure facing away from the camera, but twisted toward it as if ready to strike. In its hands was the hilt of a lightsaber. The blades were not deployed, but the weapon was unmistakable. "Yeah," said Hanks triumphantly. "We've found our Sith." He pointed at the figure's chin, the only part of its body that was visible. "We didn't get a good look at the face, but judging by its figure, I'm thinking our suspect is female. The skin is human, and its color matches what the humans on this planet look like. Could be a coincidence, but I think our Sith is homegrown." His eyes gleamed. "I don't think we've got a Sith invasion. I think we're looking at a lone wolf." Carlotta thought on this. "I fear she has a master, at least. If she did not inherit it, then from whom did she receive her lightsaber?" "Bought it on the black market, I figured." "That's impossible.
Lightsabers can only be constructed by Jedi or Sith, so they are very rare. What few have fallen into the hands of traders have been auctioned off to collectors and museums. I doubt anyone from this planet could afford one."
"Thanks." His voice was bitter. Too late, Carlota realized how that had sounded, but before she could apologize, the sheriff plowed ahead. "Anyway, our Sith might be homegrown, but she didn't spend the last 5 years in this county. If she's reckless enough to cut a droid in half and just leave it there, there's no way she could have lived here for all that time without me knowing about it. She was someplace else. If that someplace is off-world, then we're high and dry, because I've got no leads. But I have a hunch it might have been here on Yostin, in Peyton's Landing. It's the capital of the whole planet."
"I see."
"I checked for notifications from Peyton's Landing's police department, and it seems we're having comm troubles because none of the bulletins are displaying properly. But if there's anything to find, there'll be plenty of work for all of us. I already got Keither's permission to use his starship to get us there, so now there's nothing left to do but pack up. Can you get ready?" Carlota stopped. The fears she refused to name churned in her stomach.
"Peyton's Landing is not entirely safe."
Hanks patted the blaster at his hip. "That's what this is for. I can't imagine it'll happen, but if you Jedi need to spark up your lightsabers to protect yourselves, don't be afraid to do it."
"Is it absolutely necessary that Keither accompany us?"
Hanks's leathery brow grew a few more wrinkles. "No, wait a minute. I asked you back on Krivo if you trusted him, and you said yes."
"I do trust him."
"Then what's the holdup?"
Privately, she thought, "I love him and can't lose him. I can't bear the thought of being the reason he faces danger. He deserves a better master than I. I just want to leave him someplace safe and not worry. I don't know what I'm doing."
But all she said was,
"I cannot say."
"Well then, he's coming with. We're packing up today. When's the soonest you can be ready?"
Carlota lifted the rinsed robe from the cold water basin and laid it gently in the clean clothes basket. "I am ready now." It had been a very long time since Carlota had last seen a place like Peyton's Landing. She had expected to see quaint wooden city buildings, broad dirt streets, and sunny vistas of the surrounding hills. Instead, Peyton's Landing was a place that had long ago chased away everything of color. Old factories and drab blocks of apartments lined the dusty, wind-blown streets. With metal fence everywhere, it felt somehow empty despite the presence of people. The people themselves were not helping. They ignored her pointedly, and when they didn't, she could see in their eyes a radiant ill will, which she assumed to be born of envy. She kept her lightsaber carefully concealed under her windbreaker, dreading that some fool might threaten her for it and force her to hurt them. She could not restrain herself from saying, "I do not envy anyone who lives here."
"It's a lot better on the other side of town," said Hanks. "But yeah, this is pretty shabby." Now that she had spoken her mind, it occurred to her to wonder why this city disgusted her as it did. There was, after all, no shame in being poor. She searched her feelings, and the answer chilled her.
"This place is strong with the dark side."
"Run that by me again?"
"I sense evil. Not just petty greed and violence, but power, too. Power derived from the dark side of the Force."
Hanks checked over his shoulders, a hand on his holster. "Guess that means we're on the right track." The police station was a low, humble office building pressed between two restaurants. Inside, Hanks asked at the desk, "Good morning, I'm Sheriff Hanks, Flatbird County. I'm here to see about the East Side case files. There's been comm trouble, so I had to come in person."
"East Side?"
said a voice behind them.
"That's my beat."
Carlota turned to see an orange Twi'lek woman in a dark, finely pressed uniform with a detective's decoration prominent on her chest. She was tall, fit, and delicate-featured, and yet no one would have called her beautiful. Her expression was flat, the look in her eyes callous and calculating. Even the angle of her chin suggested pure, mechanical indifference. Instantly, Carlota was suspicious. "East Side is your district?" Hanks held out a hand. "I'm Sheriff Hanks. Good to meet you. I wanted to take a look at potential black market activity. The messages from this department aren't displaying on my comm."
"I heard.
Come into my office." The detective's office was as ruthlessly clean as her uniform, but with a few decorations. A figurine, probably of some local hero, stood on the corner of her desk, and on the other corner was a photograph of the detective, together with what looked like a husband. Carlota was amazed. "So," the detective said, "what case are you looking for?" "We want to see about the black market in weapons. Specifically, we're trying to find where our suspect might have gotten a lightsaber." "It would be double-bladed," Carlota threw in. The sheriff and the detective both looked at her quizzically. "The hilt in the picture was long. Long hilts are designed to provide leverage for a two-handed grip, which is unique to double-bladed models." "I see," said the detective. "How long ago was this?" "It starts over 5 years ago," said Hanks, "but the suspect could have been here as recently as a month ago." "You're not likely to find anything, but I'll send you the files." "While they're fixing the comm glitch, it'd be faster if I could just see the tapes." "The comms are fine. I don't send out stats anymore." "What?" "No one ever uses them. No reason to collate all the crime data when no one in the countryside knows how to enter a query." "Like hell we don't! You've got years of data and you're sitting on it? I need that!" Behind the detective's dead eyes, Carlota thought she could detect a fleeting hint of embarrassment. "I'm sorry you had to come all the way here just to find that out. If you'd given me a call, I could have sent it to you." She looked at her computer, then seemed to change her mind. "Long as you're here, would you rather have the tapes themselves?" "Yes," Hanks grumbled. "Here." She handed him an identification cylinder. "This will get you into the tape room. It's the last room down the hall, on the left. Will that be everything you need?" Hanks took the cylinder, and Carlota could sense his anger cooling. "Everything for now. Thank you." With that, Hanks and the Jedi left the office. "This is fortuitous," said Keither. "I had feared that they would have nothing. It's possible that the answers we need have been here the whole time." "One can hope," said Hanks. He looked at Carlota. "That detective gal would make a good Jedi, wouldn't she?" Carlota checked his expression to make sure he was serious. "Her? How can you say that?" "Didn't mean that as an insult. You folks are always trying to keep the lid on your passions, am I right? Always trying to keep an even keel. She's got that down cold. I bet she could autopsy her own mother and not lose her cool." Carlota thought on this, horrified. The detective had kept her voice flat. She had not responded to Hanks's outburst, and she'd even had the humility to express regret that she had not sent him the information. The Jedi Council would indeed have liked her. And yet, she thought, that can't possibly be what we are. The Jedi are not machines. We act out of love for life, justice, and the universe. But when she tried to think how any Jedi could show love of any kind, she ran up against the same deadening thought. That would be forbidden. Carlota masked her confusion with a shrug. "Perhaps you're right." Scylla had no more patience for doubts. From now on, she promised herself, life would be simple, and she would live it only for herself. There would be no more holding back or getting distracted. But there were still loose ends to tie up, and one of them was Jamar. If he ever learned that she had disposed of his cousin, there would be hell to pay. But maybe he never would learn of it. Maybe she could frame someone else for the disappearance, and perhaps even help him look for her. Surely that would shore up his loyalty to her. For now, though, it remained simply to speak with him. She was in a good enough mood that she was even prepared to apologize to him for leaving unexpectedly. She waited outside the front door of the building where he lived. Unless his schedule had changed, he would be returning from work soon. There he was, unhurried as always, until the moment he noticed Scylla. He stopped. Then he composed himself, the way Scylla had seen Sith apprentices compose themselves before entering the sparring ring. "Well, it's you again." "Jamar," she sang. "I'm happy to see you." "Yeah, me too." He did not sound sincere. "I want to tell you I'm no longer upset about what we said last time. I understand, truly, it is frustrating that I cannot tell you what I do."
Look, don't worry about it. He hesitated. You know, I was having a great time that night when we made dinner together. We both did.
Yes, I did.
I wish I knew what I was getting when I have you over. I can never tell if I'm getting stay a while and have a good time, Scylla, or run off and never explain it, Scylla. That's what's so frustrating.
So you know that I did not do that to spite you. The reasons had nothing to do with you.
Yeah, he grumbled. You made it pretty clear I didn't matter.
So, why not tell me what you plan to do tonight?
Hit the cantina, he said. See who's there. And next evening I'm watching the swoop races with Nikki and Jardin. And after that I'm going to spend the day taking the empty batteries to the recycling center. That took her aback. Jamar never planned that far ahead.
What then?
He sighed bitterly. Don't think I'm going to have time for you ever again, frankly.
What?
When we do things together, I love it, alright? I want you to know that. But half the time, I can't get you to do anything. And then half the time, all you want to talk about is yourself. And then half the time, you won't even talk about that because you'll just say it's a secret and slam it shut. That's not enough, alright? It's over.
Jamar, no!
Yes. So just go find some other guy, alright? Her mind raced.
You can't just leave me.
Okay, that's rich coming from you. He moved for the door. Goodbye. An idea came to her.
Jamar, wait!
He turned to face her. She moved her hand in an arc, and with the force she reached for his mind.
You don't want to leave me.
His brow creased. His right hand touched his forehead. She sensed that it had not worked, so she honed her concentration to a finer point and tried again.
You don't want to leave me.
Stop saying that! He opened the door. I need to go lie down. And he was gone. The door slid shut behind him, and Scylla was alone. She felt as if a part of her own body had ripped itself free of her and walked away. For a long time, she stood there dumbly. Then she plodded back to the Sith compound, entered her quarters, and dropped into her bed, her head in her hands. It has been a tangled road, thought Carlota. The last few days had been a grueling storm of interviews, record-keeping, fact-checking, and, when there was time, sleeping. She wondered how Hanks had time for this, but declined to ask. At least Keither was safe. Now that they were immersed in the slow, opaque work of sifting through seas of crimes and evidence to find one that might point to their Sith, or the mysterious supplier of her lightsaber, the danger had ebbed. Nonetheless, Carlota was not idle. Each time Hanks visited someone who might possibly have seen the mystery Sith, he had a Jedi with him. Now they stood, a lawman and a Jedi, hopelessly out of place in a cheap little apartment belonging to a young man who looked like any other rough city boy. His eyes showed grief, but that, sadly, was not rare. Most of the interviewees so far had been witnesses to murders that the Sith might have been party to, and the pain was fresh for many of them. "Look," said the witness, in response to Hanks's last question, "you guys already talked to me once. I did what you said. I talked. I'm going through hell right now, so the last thing I need is the cops hassling me again." "Do the cops hassle you often?" asked Hanks. "No, and I want to keep it that way." At Carlota's side, where Hanks could see it, and the witness couldn't, Carlota opened her hand. It was her signal that she could sense no sudden tremors in his aura, no sign that he was lying. Hanks took note. "Well then," said Hanks mildly, "we'll make this quick as we can. Like I said, it goes quicker if you cooperate. So tell me, son." He displayed the picture of the Sith about to slice apart the groundskeeper droid. "Have you seen a human who dresses like this?" The witness squinted at the picture. "That looks like my crazy ex-girlfriend. Why?" Carlota and Hanks traded a look of surprise, but she could sense that the witness believed what he was saying. Many things polluted his aura in the Force, but dishonesty was not one of them.
Hanks put his sabac face back on. Right now we're just trying to find her. Did she drop by this city often? She lived here. Still does, I think. And what does she do here? He folded his arms and scowled. If she ever told me anything, I'd be able to help you. But every time I asked what she was up to, she wouldn't answer me. We've been together almost a year, and I never even knew her address. What do you know about her? Nothing, he whined. I don't even know what she did for a living. All I ever found out was that she went off-world a lot. Carlota gave another open hand. Hanks went in for the kill. Off-world, huh? To places like Crevo? The witness blew out the side of his mouth. Like I'd know. For all I know, she wasn't going to space at all. She was just lying the whole time. Garissa thought she might be a smuggler. He gave a heavy, bitter shrug. A snake like her? Sure, why not? Garissa. Cousin to the witness, Garissa had disappeared recently, and was the reason Hanks and Carlota were here interviewing him. Hanks softened his voice. Sounds like you had a pretty nasty breakup. Carlota pursed her lips. This personal business was his own, and she did not want to hear it. For some reason, the witness had no such qualms. It wasn't even the breakup, he half shouted. It was great at first. She was always happy to see me and spend the night, always curious. It was just exciting, you know? It was exciting. Yeah, that does sound pretty exciting. Let's get her name. What did she call herself? Scylla. Scylla Horace. Scylla. Now think past your breakup for a minute. Put that in a box. Is there anything else that went wrong between you two? Don't really know what you mean. I mean, she and my cousin clashed sometimes. Hanks leaned forward a little. Want to tell me about that? The witness sighed. Garissa was always trying to keep people away from me. It was like that since we were kids. It was hard because she wanted to be my sister, but Mom wouldn't really let her, so she got clingy whenever we were out. I started to like having her around. He smiled ruefully. That didn't stop. When Scylla came into my life, Garissa thought, oh, this girl's dangerous, I need to chase her away. But I think she liked her, too. That last clause caught Carlota by surprise, but his aura did not stir, so she held her hand open. So it was a pretty complicated relationship, said Hanks. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Did Scylla ever say anything about harming Garissa? No. He squinted at Hanks. Did she? Is that what happened? Come on, tell me. She is a suspect. When she broke up with you, was she very upset? She didn't. I broke up with her. And was she hurt? Yeah, she looked totally upset. When was this? It's been 15 days. So this was immediately before Garissa's disappearance? Yeah, or right after. His tough, bitter exterior cracked a little, and Carlota glimpsed the pain underneath, the guilt. Look, I don't know what happened to Garissa, or when. When I didn't see her around, I just assumed she was out crashing with a friend. I didn't think... He shook his head. His lips trembled, and his voice strained. I didn't think she was missing. If I'd known, I would have done something. It's all right, son, you're doing something now. Try to think of any red flags you might have seen, from anyone, not just from Scylla. Any suspicious behavior. Am I ringing any bells? Kind of. Look, if you're really gonna do this to me, I'll just tell you what happened. He let out another sigh, this one sour and tired. She was visiting me one night, and suddenly she starts talking about the past. She's not really saying anything, just being vague about it, like something is calling to me, or I feel chained to the past, or that kind of rot. And then she leaves. He paused, as if he expected Hanks and Carlota to be scandalized. Carlota flashed the open hand, purely to fill the silence. The witness grew louder. And then she's gone for weeks, I think. None of my calls reach her, and then she appears out of the blue. I mean, in person, like she's back from the dead. And she wants to date me like nothing's happened. And she still won't tell me where the hell she was the whole time. Carlota's patience ran out. Young man, you must keep your voice down. He sneered at her. What are you, a school teacher?
I just lost my girlfriend and my cousin in the same week, okay? So back off! They stared each other down. Don't get sidetracked, you're doing great, said Hanks. This red flag, what was it? He threw himself back into it. So I finally get sick of it and I tell her, girl, I'm done with you. I'm sick of your nonsense and I don't want to see you again. Something was wrong with that. It was not a lie, but at least a distortion. Hesitantly, Carlota closed her hand into a fist. And then she gets all upset because she can't see past her nose and she just wants to get with me like nothing happened. And then I tell her no, it's not going to be that way. And she does something weird. She does this with her hand. He waved in a little arc in front of him. And she says, "You're not going to leave me." Carlota gaped at him. Are you sure? And how did her voice sound? Just like I said it. Come on, aren't you listening? And get this, when that doesn't work, she does it again. Hank started to say something, but Carlota ran him over. And you did not do as she said? Of course not, he thundered. What's wrong with you? Hanks and Carlota shared a flabbergasted look. Carlota held her hand open, and when Hank saw it, he gestured for her to take over. Carlota leaned forward and rested her hands on the table. When she said those words, did you feel anything strange? Did you feel pulled? What kind of a question is that? It is time for the truth. Your lover is not merely suspected of kidnapping. We fear she may have dabbled in dark arts. We are not sure of this, but we think she may have been a Sith. He looked at her thoughtfully. Are you a Jedi? She got out her lightsaber, held it out, and ignited the blade. She let it hum idly for a moment, then switched it off. I am, she said, and in spite of the Jedi admonishment against relishing power, she thoroughly enjoyed the shocked silence that followed. Suddenly, the witness's voice was quiet. Okay, I'll admit, when she said that thing, I did feel kinda muzzy, like I was drunk all of a sudden. His face twisted with fear. What does that mean? Young man, your lover tried to do something insidious to you. She abused the Force in an attempt to twist your mind. Are you telling me she tried to mind control me? By reaching out with the Force, it is possible to enter someone else's mind and change their thoughts. That you resisted her is very remarkable. You have a rare gift. What was she gonna do to me? Your guess is as good as mine. The witness looked down. His expression grew distant. Then his upper arms pressed tightly against his chest, and he hugged himself. Panic mixed with his grief, and his face reddened. What is she? Hanks put his hands between Carlota and the witness. Hey, that's enough, son. I think you need a break. Let's wrap this up for today. The witness nodded. Hanks left the apartment. Carlota followed, and the exact moment she closed the door behind them, she said, A mind trick. A Sith tried to mind trick him into remaining with her. Now we have a guy who can pick her out of a lineup. Hanks mounted his speeder bike. And we got a name, too. Scylla Horus. He stopped. He grabbed his chin between his thumb and forefinger. Wait a second. He did not finish the thought. As soon as Carlota mounted behind him, he gunned the throttle, and they sped through the frosty air to the police station. But as soon as they were inside, out of the gritty darkness and into the aggressively clean whiteness of the station, he pulled out his holoprojector and made a call. The image of a male Nikto, not unlike the sheriff, resolved itself in the air. Hey, Dad, he said. What's up? Hanks gave a warm smile. Hey now, Deputy, this is a professional call. My rank isn't Dad. Young Deputy Hanks straightened up. What is it, Sheriff? How's your first week on the job? Is Flatbird County giving you any trouble? No, sir, it's been pretty quiet. A domestic disturbance got out of hand, but no arrests. Next time you're at the office, I need you to run a name for me in the registry. Put in Scylla Horus. He spelled the name out. I'm at the office right now. Stay online, I'm going to do it now. He walked away from his device and disappeared from the holo projection. Over the silence, Carlota pointed out, The Sith commonly take new names as they gain in rank. Do you think Scylla is her true name? Young Hanks came in to answer. Yeah, assault, disorderly conduct, possession of banned substances. It says she's truant on community service, too. Sheriff Hanks put up a cautioning hand. Wait, slow down, Deputy. So there is a Scylla Horace in Flatbird County? Yes, sir, until about 8 years ago. It says she's been missing ever since. And there's a Del Horace, too, her father. Hanks's arms went limp, and he put a hand on his head. His jaw hung slack. Son of a Minoc! It's that girl who tried to steal my gun! She's the Sith! Behind them, a door slammed open. Rip-tarts! Said a familiar voice. Hey guys, you hungry? Of course you are. I did a grocery run, got us all Rip-tarts. Take 'em, they'll keep your strength up. Rolls got between Hanks and Carlota with a tray of steaming meat pastries. Come on, take 'em! Carlota was famished, but found she could not think about food. Hanks, you know this woman? Yeah, her dad's one of the local drunks. Hey, said Rolls. You gotta get your nutrition. I'm gonna hold everyone's feet to the fire on this. We can't have you going dizzy because you're skipping meals. If a pilot does that, everybody dies in a giant... Hanks seized the tray of tarts with both hands. Rolls, we found her! We found the Sith! Rolls tilted his head. What? Hanks snatched up the projector. Deputy, you still there? Yeah, Dad. Sheriff. Here's what I need you to do. Find Del Horace. Tell him his daughter's been spotted, and we need him over here so he can tell us everything he can. Don't send him anywhere, just tell him to be ready in his house in a couple of hours. I'm sending a man in a starship to pick him up. On it, said Rolls, and he scampered off. Young Hanks gave a thumbs up. Will do, Sheriff. And Deputy? Yes, sir? I'm proud of you. Young Hanks grinned a big, boyish grin, and the call ended. You have a son, said Carlota. Yeah, said Hanks. So you know. Know what? You know how it is to take someone under your wing and bring them up. You know the doubt, the worry. Yeah, you can't let it get to you, though. He held up the tray. Let's eat these, I'm starving. How can you be so dismissive of danger? When your pupil is on his own, so much is at risk. Hanks did not answer. He was already wolfing down his first Rip-Tart.